Stupid idiot. Stupid idiot. Stupid idiot.
Okay, here, new video of Sam Harris and Dave Rubin chatting about Trump. Let's see if Sam is able to yank some wisdom from the jaws of stupidity with Dave Rubin here.
One of the places where obviously we're not completely lined up is sort of the Trump stuff and the reaction to all of this. I think the wrecking ball that he put through the machine that was dumbing us all down, that was creating this identity politics situation and everything else that had been so corroded into the system, I think where we're at now, I'm quite hopeful. I actually sense a lot of fertility for ideas. I think the fact that this whole crew of people has come together, or whether we're independent or together, whatever you want to call it, the fact that there's such interest in all of this, I think is all good, and I see that as sort of a direct result of Trump just shaking up the system.
So Dave thinks Trump's election was a good thing because he was able to engage people politically or get them to talk about ideas that I guess they weren't talking about before. Like, why are young children being held behind bars and separated from their parents? Or what do we do to plan for the nuclear holocaust with North Korea? Why the fuck is there a space force? Which porn star is going to admit having sex with Trump next? Why is Trump ruining all of America's trade relations with its allies? These are the questions Dave Rubin is happy we're thinking about now.
That being said, does he lie all the time? Absolutely. Do I think they all lie all the time? Yeah. Did Obama lie about if you like your health doctor, you can keep it? Yeah, the Syria red line, blah, blah, blah. It's just Trump does a different series of lies and does them much more blatantly.
Well, it's worse.
So I almost
than
view
that.
him as a necessary evil, I guess.
I can't give you that last thing on the scale of the line, because I think it's orders of magnitude worse. I mean, like, not even just one order of magnitude worse. It's like 100-fold worse with Trump.
So, all right, so if you take those two, though, so if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Obamacare obviously was his biggest public policy, domestic public policy thing.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big lie.
Still harping on Obama. He just needs to talk about Obama as if Obama did all these terrible things to the country.
They pretty much admitted that he knew he was saying it because he wanted to pass it.
Yeah, I mean, whether that was a lie or not, or whether he just reneged on a promise, or I mean, like the red line, I don't really view as a lie. I just view that as a failure of nerve. It's like he drew a red line that he probably shouldn't have drawn, because he if he had thought about it, he knew he wasn't going to go to war over it.
Right.
And then he made us look weak because he didn't, the line was crossed and we didn't respond. I think that was, but it's just, we were living in a world where you would have a whole news cycle over Obama wearing a tan suit, right?
Right.
And now we're living in a world where a porn star can say, listen, he's lying about this and I have evidence, and it's like it's eclipsed by the next lie he tells by the end of that news cycle, right? So it's just, it's literally true to say that Obama's presidency would have been completely derailed by any one of maybe 100 things you could say Donald Trump has said or done in the last year. I mean, not even. I mean, way beyond 10 things. I mean, I can't list them now, but I mean, almost anything he does on a weekly basis, if not a daily basis, had you seen Obama do it in that period of the earth that we can
so
all
can you
dimly
give me
recollect?
one that you think would have really derailed an Obama presidency? Because to me, it was like the media was so far up his butt, he could have pretty much gotten away with anything.
This is how dumb Dave Rubin is. They called him out on spying, they called him out on his drones, they called him out on anything important. The fuck are you talking about, you troglodyte?
Well, I get what you're saying, that, yeah, they focused on tan suits and silly nonsense, but to me, I see that as almost like it's because you guys weren't doing your job. You should have been digging a little bit more or whatever.
You should be like digging a little bit more or whatever,
Well, no, but I think it's actually true to say that Obama was basically
better,
as honest as a politician can be and still be a politician. I mean, I'm sure he lied about things, right?
Yeah.
But there's no story on Obama being just this depraved person behind closed doors who's a con artist, who gets away with everything that he can get away with, who's trailing a long list of business and interpersonal casualties, who will tell you if you put them on camera or you get them privately that he's the worst person they've ever met, right? That's who's president now, right? It's just it's a completely different personality, and I think so. Whatever happens, let's say let's say we're living in a universe where having a a uniquely narcissistic, selfish, shallow personality in this position of power works out well. Let's just say that. I mean, so let's just to take your wrecking ball theory. He's kind of swung through here.
Yeah.
He's disrupted everything. You know, I do view him, as I've said before, as a kind of evil Chauncey Gardner character. I don't view him as this sort of master. I think Scott Adams is completely out to lunch on this. I don't think he's this genius manipulator. I mean, he's got some talents, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But I think.
But you think it's much less calculated.
Much less calculated.
Certainly than Scott.
I don't think him contradicting himself 2 sentences later, right, when he says, you know, this is an amazing letter, you'd all like to read this letter, and then he says 2 sentences later, I haven't read the letter.
Yeah.
That's not calculated. He's just doesn't have he can't take the cognitive overhead to even figure out what was logically implied by the last thing he said, right? So he's not, the truth is, he lies all the time, but worse than lying, and this is the great distinction that the philosopher Harry Frankfurt made in his book On Bullshit, worse than lying is that he's bullshitting all the time. And the difference between lying and bullshitting is that if I'm going to lie to you, I'm paying attention to what I know, I know what is true, I know you know what is true, and I'm trying to insert a lie into the space provided in a way that you won't notice, right? Like I'm having to keep track of reality in order to lie to you successfully. I understand your logical expectations. I understand that if I tell you that, you know, I was an hour late here because the traffic was so bad, I can't say in the next sentence, oh, I left an hour late from my house, right? So so the bullshitter isn't doing any of that. The bullshitter is just talking, right? And therefore has renounced the reality testing he has to do to lie successfully. And he's just, he has, the burden is not on him to make any sense at all in the end. And that, to an amazing degree, not entirely, I think he does actually lie strategically sometimes, but to an amazing degree, and this is what I think is so harmful about his presidency, whatever happens with North Korea or anything else that we might, care about, to an amazing degree, he has revealed that half of our society will accept somebody who is just bullshitting all the time about things great and small. I mean, it doesn't matter how important or how inconsequential. Porn stars, what just happened with the G7, what was said behind closed doors, what he's going to say to some maniac with nukes. There's just we've completely forsaken any expectation of a reality-based conversation, and many people seem to revel in it. Many people seem to think this is just good fun. And it's a bit of the wrecking ball theory gone to some nihilistic extreme, where it's just, let's just burn it all down. Like there's just nothing. There was nothing worth maintaining about our institutions, about our norms, about our traditions, about the expectations of other countries that are our allies. Like, who cares if all of our traditional allies don't know what to think about the president because he said one thing 5 minutes ago and he says the opposite thing now, and they're all left with their jaws on the floor, right? That's just comedy for 40% of America. I think there's a real consequence to that, because what Trump has revealed is that there's a space for a truly terrible, calculating person, like the sinister person with a real ideology, not just.
So you think someone potentially worse than him?
Oh,
really?
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we've proven to ourselves that literally anyone who can connect certain dots. I mean, anyone who can connect the dots of, I'm not even sure what these dots are, but I mean, obviously Trump connected some of them. Fame and a certain kind of charisma. A kind of populist, an ability to strike the populist note in a way that's compelling. Someone could be way worse and way smarter and have a very different agenda can become president. And I think that's, it's good, perhaps it's good to know that, but it's just, I think we now know that about ourselves.
Yeah, is this then the weird, so I think that I'm certainly not a nihilist, and I'm definitely not somebody that wanted to burn the whole thing down, but
Nobody cares what you call yourself, Dave. You have an IQ of 75. on a good day.
But I do view this reckoning as basically good as long as this other person doesn't magically appear out of it. And I also sense that the time of craziness that we're in right now and this endless inability to have these honest conversations, and I agree with you on his basic management of truth, or whatever you want. Management of truth is an interesting phrase, but whatever that is, that I sense there is going to be a rebound towards sanity. That at some point you can't always have the wrecking ball, always have the guy that's flipping everything over and destroying it, and that if our institutions are strong enough, and if there's enough sane people out there, and enough people that are listening to thoughtful conversations, and I think we both agree there's a lot of people growing in that regard, that the next version of whatever happens at an election is going to come from something much saner.
Yeah, I don't see the evidence
saner
of that.
from where we were before. Because that's where we were just getting a lot of bullshit from the media.
Yeah, a lot of bullshit from the media. Left-wing media bullshit, yeah.
And from everything else, that we might actually get a rebound into sanity. So you're not as hopeful.
No, because what I see is the Republican Party has been destroyed, right? The Republican Party has become Trump's party. It's just this populist, pandering, they're just all trying to figure out what to do in his wake, but nobody, there's no coherent platform anymore there. And as we've said, the left has swung into this insane just victimology echo chamber of identity politics where everyone's a racist.
Yeah.
Right? So
I guess maybe that's sort of the root of where our little disconnect is on this, because I fear that much more.
Yeah, wrong, Dave. Wrong again. As much of a problem as this regressive PC culture, identity politics bullshit is, it's orders of magnitude less important and less dangerous than a Trump presidency and neoliberalism, the collapsing middle class, the collapse of unions, rising debt, and extreme income inequality.
I think that thing that's happening on the left, this identity politics thing, I think that's the thing that could actually truly upend the entire American experiment. The idea that we would end up looking at each other only on these immutable characteristics and hiring each other only on these things and having quotas and ripping apart the good pieces of multiculturalism that we've done here better than anybody, and the melting pot that we've done better, it will cause us to all be horrifically suspicious of each other and angry at each other, really for no reason other than the way we look.
So here you can see Dave trying to steer the conversation into the exact same way all of his other conversations go, with all the guests he brings in that are smarter than him, where every single one of them talks about, isn't the left shitty? Aren't they so anti-free speech? Tell me more about how they're regressive and they hate free speech. Let's talk about that and how we're so much better, and we like ideas. What ideas, Rubin? I haven't heard you present a single idea.
And I'm not discounting anything you're saying about what's happening on the right, although I do see a streak of libertarianism on the right that I really like. I think there actually has been a rebirth. You know, a guy like Shapiro is obviously not a real
intellectual. Yeah, I know. We fucking know that.
Trump guy at heart, and he's arguing a lot of libertarian stuff that I like.
Libertarian stuff. Oh yeah, and who are the philosophers of libertarianism? Name one, Dave. I'm waiting.
Maybe you don't like it as much,
but
I think it's a decent place to be arguing from. But I guess maybe that is where our little disconnect is on that. That the thing on the left I view as much scarier. I think it's a much more of an immediate threat. And I say that knowing full well that Trump has the nuclear codes.
Yeah, those student protesters, Dave. Real threat to civilization and America's stature in the world.
So maybe that's a little...
Yeah, I think they're both enormous problems. I don't know which... the Trump thing could seem fine until something horrific happens, right? So it's like, and it's just, it is in fact hard to know what's happening and what risks we're running. So it's like, the economy seems to be doing good by what metric? By the stock market hasn't imploded, right? So, but
unemployment's low, consumer confidence is high, Black and Latino unemployment's really low.
Right, but there are ways to parse all of those numbers that are less optimistic. So like the employment numbers are low because lots of people are just fallen out of the job surge. But the stock market, I think there's something like 8% of Americans are in the stock market. It's like 92% of Americans are not even exposed to the stock market,
right?
Or at least directly. So those numbers could be a little off, but it's something like that. But all of that would change radically the moment something, the left's worst fears about Trump are realized. The moment he does something that just gets us far closer to obvious, war, or actually into one, and it's clearly the wrong war. The fact that, I think that the U.S. no longer stands, at least in the eyes of the world, the U.S. no longer stands for sanity on some fundamental questions of human values. Whether it's climate change and environmentalism and doing something sane with respect to that, or human rights. He just took a meeting with perhaps the greatest human rights violator, certainly the current generation, and it's just clear now that the U.S. will glad hand a dictator and say nothing about the fact that he's running a gulag system, and they have been for decades. That used to be unthinkable, and that extinguishes a certain hope of kind of moral high ground that the rest of the world, I think, rightly depended on us for. And given the current occupant of the Oval Office, we've completely abandoned that.